For the first time this season, we have Ollie back with us for an episode of Got Something For Ya. Ollie, welcome back. How have you been liking the season so far?
It's been really good. I feel like I was very hesitant on this season just because of how much I enjoyed 46. And so I remember kind of even like before the draft, I was like, don't really know how I feel about all this. But it's been really good. Like, I've been very pleasantly surprised.
Well, let's face it. Also, you had to pick last in the draft, so I'm sure that did not help your excitement.
I only had 2 picks, so I only had 2 draft members.
That's
I don't know what
true.
I'm talking about.
That's true. And I want to give a shout out to our co-host for the day. For those of you joining in our live chat, Minnows, I saw you put Yippee. I combined it in my head. Minnows, always great to see you. Kat, thank you so much for joining. We are so happy to have Ollie back as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. Oh, Minnows, funny you mentioned Q on the Purple Pants podcast. I liked what he had to say a lot on there too. So, and I'm sure let's just lay it out here now. This is a very controversial episode. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you, Ollie, about just like also just noticing the fan reaction to it was interesting.
Yeah, the fan reaction was that's probably the most diplomatic way we can say it. Interesting for sure. See, you said controversial. I personally didn't find it controversial, but that's just because I'm not bitter. So I guess it just depends on how you feel about the episode and the result.
Like, I'll just say it right now. I think what happened made sense narratively, but may not make sense game wise for a few people. But that's what we're here to discuss today. And Gabe, always good to see you as well. It has been really entertaining. I'm liking it. For those of you who know, I wasn't as big of a fan as Ollie was of 46, but I'm having a really good time with 47. So let's get into it. When we start, we get the celebration from Caroline and Sue that they just went ahead and they did a blindside. They got TK out, and this was really. Did you have the same reaction, Ollie, when Caroline started celebrating and Sue was like, "What? Like, what are you doing?"
Sue was like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then she like disappeared into the darkness.
Yeah.
That I thought was hilarious. Yeah, I was happy because I think obviously I haven't been able to podcast for the last 2 weeks. So needless to say, like just a pre-episode 4, I was very happy to see TK go. I definitely know if I was on the Dooku tribe and I had to deal with that, yeah, I would have voted in majority. That's all I know. But I was really happy to see their reaction, and I'm glad that the show spotlighted them two in this instance, because I feel like this is quite a nice dynamic that I like seeing on my screen. Like I like seeing this duo appear.
They're a good duo. I think they're great characters on Tuku. And now we get the fact. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention everyone. Phil cannot make it today, but we will see him next week. But when it comes back to the show, Minnows, I did not realize that Tiana had no confessionals during.
No confessionals.
Really?
She's the only one this episode.
That's so strange to me because for the past 2 seasons where they've done the 90 minutes, they've been very good about making sure everyone has at least had a moment. So that's really surprising to me. But
yeah, well, this is the thing, like, because I remember we all know how I feel about confessionals after watching Australian Survivor. So I will say though that they have been doing a decent job, because I think it was like last episode, I think it was only Genevieve that didn't get a confessional. And then this episode, it's only Tiana that didn't get an episode. So they have been doing better.
Well, yeah, but I feel like in the last 2 seasons, like we haven't seen something like this where they've just completely omitted someone from the edit. And Genevieve, I'm glad you brought her up because she's a great example too. For the first couple of episodes, I was like, where the heck is Genevieve? But going back to Tuku, we get the idea that Sue is not happy with Kyle because Kyle wrote her name, and we do have Ollie, you put up a very interesting poll about Sue's reaction to Kyle that I'm excited to talk about during the Tribe has posted. But this comes to a head when Gabe approaches Kyle. He's like, Kyle is so wonderful. I want to work with Kyle. Like, I feel like, as I said last week, I think Gabe is trying to get Kyle as a number. And I think that's Kyle's in a very dangerous position, which is great. Or sorry, he's a very dangerous player based on where he is now and the fact that he wants to play with him. But Kyle's like, I don't know how I feel about this. I want to turn the tables on Gabe, and I'm going to tell Sue and Caroline about what he said to me. And this does not go over too well for Kyle.
Which is where I so this is where I think it is a point against Sue's game. Because actually, when I was listening to it, like when I was listening to the first interaction and it was Kyle and Gabe, you could actually hear in Gabe's language, I think it kind of showed his lack of social management, but also kind of it'd be moving on jury management. Because he said, Kyle is someone I can control. The first time you're talking about a person, you're talking about how you can control them. And like how you can control them, how you can do this. You're not treating them like a human. And I think that is where Gabe is going to struggle. Now, if anyone watched the draft, we all know my opinions on Gabe. It's fine. But this is why, because I think a lot of people are high on Gabe. Everyone's like, oh, Gabe's going to be really strong. I think he's going to be a great player. I can already see the faults in his game, which is where I'm very worried for him. And I'm glad Kyle was able to kind of see through his BS, which I think the previous episode, we kind of saw Kyle as this, like, not really strategic person, and kind of to see him able to notice what Gabe was doing and kind of be like, right, I know what I need to do. I need to kind of make sure people are aware of this, and I need to build some bonds. I think was really good of him. It's just a shame that it's very clear that other people weren't receptive to it. And I think that isn't anything to do with Kyle's game. It is bad points in other people's game.
Yeah, I think that there was a way for Gabe to approach Kyle to make it seem like last night was a tough decision, or, I think there was a way for Gabe to be like, we can put the past behind us and move forward. But I don't think he went, I'm a fan of Gabe, but I don't think he approached this well. And I will also, I don't like that he threw Tiana's name out there straight away, which felt weird to me, because I always say, before a challenge, this means nothing. All this is just ammunition that Kyle can and did use against you. And I mean, as Minno's point, we only saw Sue's reaction to Kyle coming to them with this information. We don't know what Caroline and Tiana are feeling.
Yeah.
But I think it's bad on Gabe for giving Kyle that ammunition.
But I also think it's Gabe trying to have his hand in all the cookie jars. And I think that's what could bite him in the end, because you have to understand from Kyle's perspective, his core four were himself, TK, Tiana, Gabe. So to then straight away see Gabe turn around and go, nope, not Tiana. It's like, oh, you were always being fake to me in that situation. So it's that bad thing of come on now, Gabe, let's try this. And there's actually a comment that I thought was quite funny. It was funny enough, it was by, I believe, Gabe. I'm trying to find it now.
Which one, Ollie?
It's about jury management.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, it was Minnow. Sorry, it was Minnow's.
He was looking up to someone who lost twice. Well, actually, Gabe does say a couple of things here that I did find interesting. One was that, but also I like the fact that he said, I wanted to play my idol because I saw no one play their idol in 46 and it cost them greatly. And I was like, I appreciate that.
Yes. I will say, and that's not the only 46 reference we get this episode, which I find hilarious. is.
No, it is not. Just trying to see if there's any more comments. Oh yeah, if I'm Sue and Kyle told me that Gabe wants to take me to the end, I'm like, awesome, cool, love that. Thanks for pointing out my path to the end. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So I found this whole segment to be very interesting. And then when we get to Gata, who honestly, Gata had like the least to do this episode. Like, I feel like a lot of it was between Sam seems to be like the main character, where a lot of it is between him and Annika, but also him and Sierra.
Yeah, agree. My brain's completely forgotten the tribe name, but Bruce's tribe in 45. Brain's completely forgotten it. Someone tell me in the chat. Thank you very
Blue
much.
Tribe.
Yeah, the Blue Tribe. That is the energy I'm getting from Gata right now. Like, they are just so happy to like butt heads, and it's so amazing. Like, obviously, it's great TV. It's so funny to watch.
They're so bored.
Yeah, and I think it was Andy that kind of mentioned that survivor wall, which I think is a really good analysis, and one of the, like, I feel like this is the first episode we've seen Andy, and it's like, oh, well done. You can play the game. We love this. Bello, thank you, Minos. But I lost my train of thought. Yeah, you hit this survivor wall, and it's very clear that kind of Annika and Sam's like dynamic, they are too similar, in my opinion. I think they are very similar people, but I remember everyone kind of going off on Annika at this point about like the whole camp life stuff, but it was Annika and Rachel, and I think props to Rachel for like being able to basically do what Annika did and not get any heat for her. So,
I mean, the episode did show Annika being way more outspoken than it did show Rachel. And again, like I said, I think it comes from boredom. Like when you have nothing to do except try to improve camp life. Or Sam had different priorities. Sam was like, here's the fishing gear is here, like why don't we spend time doing that? Like there's not much we can do to make our situation any more comfortable. But you are right to that point. Also, my favorite part of the episode was when Sam was chopping on the cord, and Annika was like, I think it works better if you saw it. I was like,
and then he just went, cut. That was funny. Because then you see all of this happening. And then I think it's the next, like, who do we see having a lovely time watching all of this? Just twiddling his hair. Andy. This was the first episode that I thought Andy's really starting to pull himself, like get himself out of that ditch he had dug. Now, I'm not saying he's all the way out of it. He is still in that ditch. He's just gotten a bit higher to getting out of the top.
He feels like a completely different character to me in this episode than the previous. Like it was such a 180 in terms of how the edit was framing him. Like I found it very interesting.
Well, I mean, he kind of actually looked sane is the best way, nicest way I can say it. I don't know how else I can say it.
Or more in tune with the game.
Yes, thank you. There we go. This is why I need Matthew, because Matthew helps me.
Ollie has vacation brain still, so we're just slowly easing back into it.
Vacation mode. As you can see, I'm still in my vacation mode. But actually, kind of agreeing with you, yeah. Andy was able to kind of start getting some sort of footholds in the game, because we did see him speak to Sierra, and obviously he knew that he kind of had to build that trust with Sierra because he felt like he had Sam. And one of the things I actually think was really smart of him to do was offer up his shot in the dark. Because I'm not going to lie, I don't see the significance anymore of a shot in the dark. Just because it's so rarely like discussed now, it's kind of like, oh yeah, there's a shot in the dark. But I think being able to kind of say to her, like, look, this is everyone's little safety blanket at Tribal. I'm letting you have mine to be like, I'm telling you we're good. I think that was a very big move for him. Now, part of me with Sierra, part of me would be like, thank you for your shot in the dark. bye. Can I have both now? That's what I'd want to do. But I think it did go a long way. I'm still unsure if it's going to fully help him though, because like even though it was a big gesture, and I think it was definitely reciprocated well by Sierra, he still has to do. I feel like there is still a couple more things he has to do in order to fully get that trust. Because I think, honestly, I think his episode 1 was one that was bad for him, and I feel like he still has to recover from that.
It was so public, I think it's not just amongst his tribe, like it was in front of every single player in that game. I like Gabe's quote here. I need Andy to survive a tribal and I'll believe the redemption arc. He could still spiral again. I think you're right, Gabe. I think we do need to see how Andy goes about doing that strategy later on, as opposed to just telling us right now. If for those of you who watch Survivor Now podcast, Stockwatch, they compared Andy's edit to Aubrey. If you're familiar with the Aubrey Bracco, the Aubrey as a player, which we're not here to discuss that. But Ollie, just quickly want to ask you your opinion on that. Excellent. So
have we got the crackpot theory thing for us here? Because I don't
think so.
I watched it and I fully was on Jack's side. That's all I'll say. Love you, Will. But yeah, that is currently. I mean, we could all be surprised.
Okay. Well, I think we should jump over to the main tribe of this episode, where so this still was from the part where Rome is dancing, and it doesn't appear in this still photo, but I love Asia in this moment. We get a big Rome edit before the immunity challenge. We see Rome almost was saw a shark, and I love it. I love Rome. I know people are annoyed by Rome. I love Rome, and that's okay.
That is okay. No, here's the thing. We all know. Okay, so I want to prephrase this by saying we all know that I watch Survivor, and how I view the people is how I feel like I would get along with them in the game. Rome would annoy the absolute out of me, and I know that for a fact. Great TV though. I preface this by saying great TV. I know we don't like comparing them to contestants, but I think there is a very obvious comparison here, which explains why he may have annoyed me quite a lot, and that is Mr. Q. That is the energy I sometimes get. I think my main thing with Rome is I like this particular first bit when he's talking about when it was the fishing thing. I didn't realize that Rome was an expert in everything. And I think you kind of see his bravado come out this episode. Sorry. Which, again, is great TV, but I think it definitely shows his lack of social ability. Would we agree? I mean, your face is given.
Lack of social ability? Yeah, I think that you can very easily say that. I don't see the Q comparison. I don't. With Rome, where do I want to begin? I mean, yes, great TV. I feel like I actually would get along with Rome on the island in small doses. I feel that's a thing, because I have to say I completely agreed with him at some points here, right? Like he was catching the fish. There is what was I was confused as to if he was hogging the fishing gear or if no one else just asked to use that part. I'm confused about.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to use it, I feel like they could have asked, and I feel like he would have let them. I'm just saying. But to see Rome catch the fish, which, let's face it, even small fishes, which I thought that they were being kind of rude about being like, oh, you just caught the smallest little. I'm like, that's hard to do. That's really difficult to do. So I thought I thought with Rome that catching the fish, I was like, yeah, someone should be getting the fire started. Someone should be getting the thing. Like, that's where I was like, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but then I think again, and in this for me, it goes on to Rome's personality of, because we saw it in the previous episode. Rome wants to be the one to always start the fire. Like Rome wants to be doing everything. Like Rome wants to be doing it all because that is the edit that he may want. Like he wants to be basically he wants the Rome show. Like that is what he wants. It's not a bad thing. But I think in that instance, that is why, to me, it's like, yes, you caught the fish. And like, yes, other people should start the fire. But again, context is always key here. We only see like a 90-minute episode. If you're wanting someone to start the fire, bang, and it's like, oh, someone like you might say, we need the fire now, but they've still got to get the wood. And it could be that like all four of them have gone to go grab the wood so they can make.
Oh, but the episode showed them just like chilling in the shallow part of the ocean. I know you're trying to. I get it. I really like what Minnow said here, where it was like Rome wasn't in the wrong, but it just like wasn't great social game.
Yeah.
And you know, like I feel like that's a great place to leave it on. And of course, like Rome does eat the majority of the fish that he caught, which I was like, Rome, I don't think that was a good
no. But this part actually really not infuriated me, but it kind of, I looked at it and I was like, this is why everyone critiques your social game, because like we've seen so many iterations of Survivor, and it's like there are people that are providers, like Ozzy, Malcolm, Austin. Like we've always had providers, and if you're going to fish, it's like you're not doing a Jonathan Penner where you're like making all of this and then only having it for certain people. Like we saw how that worked out for Jonathan Penner in Cook Islands, and that was the vibe I got with this, and I was there like, oh, baby boy. But again, absolutely funny.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he wanted to. I feel like he wanted some more appreciation about being the provider. Whereas to the point, some of the players that you mentioned definitely did do it as a strategy. Like, but also I think like they didn't then go. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've seen these seasons, but I don't think they went and said like, like I did this for you or like blah blah blah. But good TV. Good TV. Oh, and Gabe, to your point, we definitely will talk about Rome and how he was able to get Keyshawn and Teeny. We are definitely going to talk about that. I have a lot of thoughts. So then there's a journey. And I found this interesting because all of the players that were selected for the journey were like, they were set up in the beginning of the episode as like the odd ones out from their tribe. Like I thought that was really good storytelling, actually. So we get Kyle, who do you remember how that Kyle drew the rock to go on the journey? Annika volunteers, and Sam's like, okay. And then Rome won a rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how lucky Rome is?
Rome is lucky, and I know that there is tea on that rock, paper, scissors, because I think a lot of people were sat there saying, and it's in an exit interview, so I feel like I can say this.
Yeah.
So obviously there was rock, paper, scissors. So if anyone hasn't watched any of the eliminated persons interviews, that was just me trying to be, even though we all know who left. I'm just being nice. They actually talk about how during a challenge, they did rock, paper, scissors because they thought that maybe a journey was going to happen, and Soul won that. So they were like, right, next time a journey happens, Soul will be the one to go. And that occurs, like Asia speaks up and go, no, wait, we already did rock, paper, scissors before. Like Soul hasn't done his thing on that. The reason they redid the rock, paper, scissors is because Rome copped a strop allegedly and was like, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. We need to do rock, paper, scissors now. And everyone was kind of going, but we did rock, paper, scissors before for this upcoming journey. That like in Rome's defense, what they were saying was an absolute stretch. But I respect the stretch, and I was like, that was what was happening there. So I just wanted to give that too.
Oh, that's interesting. You know what? probably annoying to deal with, but I give credit. If Rome wanted to make it onto the journey, he made it onto the journey. Despite that. So
Yeah.
that's funny. But this was I did not like what production did here. So
No.
they all go down their separate paths and they go to that bag and they are told you have to at least pick once from the bag to see if you're going to lose your vote or if you're going to get an advantage. And I absolutely hated that they all had to do it, like forced to.
Yeah. We all know like most of Survivor Now podcast's opinion on this. And I think we're all in agreement. The thing was, I think the fact that it was forced, and I think that is my only issue with it. Like,
right.
If there is a chance, because the thing is, I think they wanted to make sure it happened. And I can completely understand that. But to kind of say, like, basically, no, you have to do this, and you have a 66% chance of losing your vote, you are basically saying to these castaways, we want to with you. Like, we want to with your game. Like, to me, that's where it kind of, the line blurred of kind of fairity in the eyes of production. So, and I think this is universal. Like, I think a lot of people have not liked the fact it was forced, which I give the community credit for standing on that. And I hope that production listen in the future. But I mean, overall, I thought it was good. Like, it was all right.
And it is manufactured drama.
Yeah.
This was ridiculous. It was such an overstep, in my opinion. What I think happened here was I think that there is an opportunity. Like, let's say the players that were selected were players who had like solid footing in their tribe. Like, we're not the bottom of their tribes.
Yeah.
Then I could see where in a world where those people potentially will lose their votes makes for more interesting scenarios and like maybe levels the playing field. But still, even if it was the strongest member of your tribe, socially wise or strategically wise, I still don't think that it should be a decision made by production that here's the thing. I think that production would argue, like, if you chose to go on the journey, then you have in fact chosen to play. I don't believe that.
Yeah. And like this goes back to like a point from Keyshawn, like pre-season. Keyshawn does not like journeys. He does not like the manufacture of it. He doesn't want any risk. And I think this is the reason, like, this particular journey, to me, solidified like Keyshawn's original point of journeys suck. Like, why? I think if they'd done it, there was still a choice, and you can lose your vote. There is a blank thing, and then there is an advantage. I think if it was that, and there was still a choice, I think you would have had people play, because there is a 66% chance that nothing bad's going to happen, which obviously makes it fairer, and it's going to give people that incentive to go, oh, well, I'll try it, and if the worst comes to it and I don't get anything, perfect. Like, that's personally how I feel like I would have done it, but I could be wrong.
I hope that they at least learn not to do this again, because the strings were very present. But Annika and Kyle lose their votes, which I felt terrible about. I know Amy's not here, unless Amy is here and just hasn't commented yet, but I love Kyle, and I'm sorry that last episode I said that, and I still I thought it would be a good move, but I think, I love him, and I'm glad he's still in the game. So they lose their votes, but Rome goes ahead and actually gets the advantage. And I thought this was funny because, like, Rome goes back to the beach and says that to the whole group, like, what did he say? He lied. He said
he lied. Let's be fair. He was the only one to lie, because that's what he likes to do. He said that
Annika lied too.
Ish. It was like a white lie that, I had the chance to lose my vote.
Lie is a lie.
I know, but so he said he lost his vote. Like, he ultimately, like, he said what occurred. So, like, he was being truthful on the, like, how the mechanics worked, but he lied about the result. So it was the flip. like Annika actually, no, now that I think about it, I feel like Annika lied more.
Annika lied more.
Truly, yeah, Annika lied more. A lie's a lie. But yeah, he basically kind of said, like, he tried to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and was like, I lost my vote, but then proceeds to tell like 2/3 of his tribe like what he actually won.
Right. Yeah, like Annika says that she was able to choose not to risk her vote.
Yeah.
So she's giving them the impression that she still has the vote. But I thought this was funny because like Rome tells the whole tribe this, and immediately on his walk with Teeny, or we don't know how time passed here, but Teeny's like, so what really happened? And I'm like, Rome, doesn't that like raise a flag that maybe your story wasn't as convincing because you have, and yes, Teeny is aligned with you, or you know, so you believe, and as it's confirmed later, but like that to me, if someone came up to me and said, okay, so like what did you really get, I'd be like, oh dang it, you know, like it wasn't as convincing.
Like I understand that like they are a part of your alliance, but I don't, if I came back to camp and said something and then I had Matthew, if you came up to me and went, so what really happened, I'd raise a flag because I'd be like, oh. And I would, part of me would just stay firm and be like, this is the tea. But yeah, it'd raise a flag that like, oh, my line didn't work.
I know, but we see that like this is one of the things Rome, I'm glad that Rome doesn't lie again. Like I'm glad he just like tells Teeny about the advantage. And this is where we start seeing Teeny being like, I have no choice but to work with Rome, which is very interesting.
Yes. People lie.
So Teeny's decision, I think, is based off of the fact that it's better to align with someone with advantages than to be the victim of those advantages, which I think is a correct move.
I agree.
It's risky, but I do think that it is a correct move. I think that it was just shocking because we saw so many confessionals where Teeny, and I'll put Keyshawn in here as well, were so vocal about Rome being on the outs of the tribe and sort of supporting in that narrative. So I wasn't expecting this, but I do think it shows to Teeny's game adaptability, whether or not you believe it was the right way to adapt.
I completely agree with you. I think this was a correct read on Teeny and Keyshawn's part, because at the end of the day, you've got someone like Rome who has a lot of power now. He's got an idol. He's got to steal a vote. And also, for me, this is a very big credit to both of their social game and kind of social cues. They've clocked the kind of player that Rome is. Rome is not here to be like kumbaya and play fair. He's going to want to make the biggest moves. He's going to want to play hard. So he wants to play aggressive. Why would you want to purposely put yourself against that? Because you know for a fact if you go against Rome, he's going to do nothing but throw the target on you, make sure all the blood's on your hands. I think it was a correct move for them to stick closer to him because they know he is going to happily throw anyone under the bus. He's going to happily put the target on anyone. If you can be behind him, just letting that occur and then do what you need to, it's smart. Like, look, at the end of the day, talk all you want about him, but if it's beneficial to have him on side, I don't see a problem with it.
I don't want to compare the gameplay, but this makes me think about a reason why some players may choose to align with King George from Australian Survivor, in the fact where if someone like King George is your number one, you're good. So I do feel like if you seriously are Rome's number one, I'll get to your comment in a second, Gabe. I feel like it is a safe place to be, which is interesting. Some people don't agree with that. But to Gabe's comment, yes, yeah, I think that what happens later in the episode, that's exactly what I got from it too. Like, you don't want to. and actually, this is interesting because I think it applies to Asia as well. But there was a risk where if they did vote Genevieve out, Rome has the advantages and power to be able. Now they know he has a steal a vote, so they could lose their vote in a future tribal council.
Yep.
And he also has the idol, so like it could really affect them negatively. The only thing that they could have done if they really didn't feel good about moving forward with Rome was to vote him out now, but couldn't happen, as we see later. So just Rome does go ahead. Oh, Minos, you just started Brains versus it's Brains versus. Are you watching Brains versus Brawn?
Yeah, Brains versus Brawn.
Oh, okay,
that's what he's watching.
Great season.
The BB tribe is here.
So Rome does tell Teeny, Genevieve, and Keyshawn, which honestly I think was great because you know that if Rome didn't tell, let's say Keyshawn, I feel like he always would have told Genevieve, but like if Keyshawn found out about it from Teeny, like I don't think that would have been good. So I like that he approached everyone that he wanted to work with.
One of the actual smart things he did this episode, he told all of his alliance because that he wanted to lock that in. So well done to him on that one.
I gotta say, I think Rome did a lot of smart things this episode. So we'll get to it. Well, there was one thing. Okay. So also on the journey, everyone gets confirmation. This was funny that in fact, Sam and Sierra are not a couple. Why do you think everyone thought they were?
I don't know. Like, I guess it's because it's just like this. They look like the type that would get together. I don't know. I found it hilarious. And like, for me, I would have probably had the same reaction as both of them. Like, why is this a thing? And part of me would be like, I'm going to squash it now. I'm going to good on Annika for saying like, they've both got partners. Because now it's that kind of thing. If people then keep it up, those two have now got the ammunition of, we've made this very clear. Stop it because it's getting ridiculous. But their reactions were absolutely hilarious. Like the shout out to Sam's fiance, and then Sierra going,
yeah,
come on.
But it's my thought is that people want to target them, and that's the easiest way, right? Like if they get a hint that they are. I mean, we know that they're friends, but I think people are taking that to a whole new thing. And I agree with Gabe's point, which Ollie speaks to your point too. Like they look like they could be together in a way where it's like maybe they were just standing closer to each other on the mat, or I don't know. But it was wild to me that everyone was so like, oh, they're the showmans of the season.
Yeah. I'm like,
but
no, the real showmans of the season is Gabe and Sue. Calling it now.
Of course. On that note, I think we should take a very quick break. And then when we come back, why don't we go ahead and talk about the immunity challenge and the strategizing that we saw on the mat?
Think you're the most knowledgeable Survivor superfan? Well, you can put that to the test with our Fantasy Survivor game. Welcome to Bracketology, fantasy sports for reality TV. We provide fantasy football-style games for your favorite shows like Survivor and many more. We also have bracket-style elimination challenges. Set your picks once for the whole season to see how your prediction skills fared. And don't forget to check out the season extras like contestant info, where you can see all the bios of each contestant, and our scoring recaps that are published each episode. Download the Bracketology mobile app or play on your computer at fantasy.bracketology.tv. It's entirely free to play, and you can win some awesome prizes. Good luck.
I am addicted to Bracketology now, and not only for Survivor, but also like I'm a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I was a fan of Big Brother, but I love having these shows that I can sort of test my knowledge, and it's a lot of fun. Ollie, are you doing Bracketology this time?
Yes, I am doing the Survivor Now Bracketology. I'm actually doing better than I thought I would. I did so poorly last season, and this time I remember the first week I finished 4th, and I was like, oh, now I'm not there, but it's fine. I'm still having a lovely time. Also, shout out to Bracketology because they did actually get like a big endorsement from another.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Wait, did you not see that they got like a huge? So shout out to Bracketology because. Sidetrack, this is nothing to do with Survivor, but they partnered with the Masked Singer US.
Nice. That is
Yeah.
really exciting for them. That's
Yeah,
really great.
and they had their own. I saw that they had like a little part in one of the Marston commercials. So
Very, very. Oh well, so I guess that we don't have to keep playing their ads, but we will because we love them. I love Minnow said the real showmans is Sam in the fishing gear. It's like the will they won't they, and so far he hasn't been able to. This challenge, I love this. It's a great. We see it all the time. It's nothing that we haven't seen, but I really liked it.
I feel like they're trying to make this a classic challenge now, and part of me doesn't mind it. Like I don't mind it. But again, we all know I'm a water baby, so
I like it better when they have to jump and grab something.
Understandable, yeah.
But
I get that.
Like these are very familiar components. But like I love the fact that like the first obstacle is to climb something and jump off of it. The second obstacle is to climb something and jump off of it. And then the third is the balance beam.
Yeah.
But my favorite part is that we got to see them strategize on the mat. When Jeff says, take a moment and then we'll begin. I love this. I see this a lot in Australian Survivor where they actually show a little bit of like the tribes talking and how they're going to approach the challenge. And I was so happy that I love this stuff.
Yeah.
What was happening here?
Rome's ego. Sorry.
Was Rome trying to have that first spot that didn't on the course with anyone?
Yeah. So yeah, Rome wanted the first part because he was like, I'll be the best at it. And again, I think this to me was another knock on his game because it's the fact that he sat there and just went, the quote is there, I'm letting you know I'm going to be mad. And to me, it's slightly selfish, but I'm not saying that in a personal way. I just want to clarify that. I think it's that thing of Rome. Again, this is Rome. This is Rome's personality. This is Rome's bravado. But I think it's these little moments that are going to have that knock-on effect. Because again, if I was there, like I would turn around and be like, Rome, I've swam for like 20 years of my life. So please don't tell me that you suddenly are like a national swimmer and you've won like 6 gold medals. So I can understand like why people would be frustrated by that. And I give Soul a lot of credit for kind of just being like, I'm not going to fight you on this. We've got a challenge to do. Go ahead and do it. But I mean, aside from this moment, there was also other funny moments that I will talk about because there was someone that was like, I'm amazing at, I think I can do every single part of this course. And it turns out they couldn't, but we'll get to that.
Was that Andy? Oh, I didn't catch that. Like, I actually had a kind of a difficult time following. Like, I didn't catch that Rome said this. I'm with Minnows on this one, where I'm like, yeah, that's pretty bad social game. And Ollie, I agree with you. I see what you mean, especially about like the sort. And I get what you mean, not personally, but there's an element of selfishness within the game itself.
Yeah.
But to Minnows' point, he did great. Like Rome really did. He kept up with Kyle, and I thought he did a good job.
But did he beat Kyle?
No, there's
well,
Kyle did really well.
Yeah. Also, there's a comment from Gabe that
why don't they sit out Keyshawn?
Yeah. Because I actually wanted to speak on this because first of all, I really liked that they had that moment with Keyshawn at the start of the challenge. Side note, he's been getting something positive every single episode. Jack and Will kind of mentioned this on Stockwatch, which I have because obviously he was my top pick for the draft. But he's been just getting something, a little just thing where it's like, great. I personally think the reason they didn't sit out Keyshawn was because he is kind of one of their puzzle people. Because he has kind of been on every single puzzle. Oh. And this is where I sat there and everyone was like, why didn't he sit out? Why didn't he sit out? Have we all not noticed that he does all of the puzzles, people? Like, please put 2 and 2 together. Like, love Genevieve, but Genevieve is there.
Oh, I overcomplicated it. I was like, maybe Genevieve doesn't like the ocean either, and like maybe they just didn't show us that. But no, you're right. That is exactly what it was.
Not to be the ego of Rome, but I know.
But yeah, and I like but you know what? I appreciate Genevieve knew knew exactly what to do while she was sitting out on that bench. Do I have the image? I do. She knew exactly what she was meant to do.
Yes.
Which was, well, this isn't it, but she was searching for an advantage, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, and that was I think we got to see a little bit of no one count Genevieve out. Like she is in tuned.
She really stuck out to me this episode, but for a reason later on, and we'll get to that.
Oh, I was going to say, please, like you're about to make Randy absolutely be happy because this is obviously his winner pick.
Well, you know what? I'm happy to do so, but Genevieve really stuck out to me. I thought like her commentary was so funny, where Jeff was like, like they're definitely not making a comeback, and I love when she's like, oh,
goodbye, Mr. Flint.
Like that. She wasn't worried about like the potential of getting voted out. She was like, we're gonna lose our fire. It was so funny, but
it was.
Yeah, I'm glad that Genevieve got a little bit more screen time this episode. I'm still not, and I mean, yes, Erica did win Survivor 41 with like not really a present edit, so like that's always a thing. And I will say, like I do think if she does win the game, I do think that I see the potential for what her winner edit could be. But it was I don't know. It's not looking great, but I'm still holding out hope. But they lose, so I love that finally, after all of these years, every single episode, 1, 2, and 3 had a different tribe going to tribal council.
Yes, I really enjoyed it because it shows no one can now talk about an unbalanced tribe. Like, no one can talk about that now because each tribe has lost. It's shown that they really have tried to look at, okay, what could each tribe be good at, but what could each tribe not be so good at? I was partly sad to see Lavo go to tribal council because there was a lot of people I was rooting for on this tribe. But yeah, the writing was very much on the wall. And again, this was another Survivor 46 callback when Keyshawn went, does anyone want to do a queue? Would anyone like to do a queue? And
would anyone like to volunteer?
Yeah.
It's like when you're going to the airport and they're like, oh, we have an overbooked flight, so we're going to need to... Who wants a voucher and get out of here? So they start strategizing.
Yes.
They start strategizing. What's my next photo? Very quickly, I forget if this was even at this part of the episode. This might be from an earlier shot, but what it illustrates is Saul and Asia, who the vote seems to be coming to point at one of them. And I love this shot. This is such good camera work. It's so beautiful. But that's where we're at. And you know what? Considering what does end up happening, this was kind of good. So, here's Ollie, do you think that Rome already knew that Asia would be the one voted out at this point? Because in the context of the episode, the vote was on Saul.
Yeah. And that was, this to me, no, this was Rome going to Saul and trying to pull the wool over his eyes. And this entire sequence, Saul literally annihilated Rome strategically. And actually, because I feel like all of us forget, Saul does poker. And I feel like this showed his poker skills because he called Rome's bluff basically and went, but what if you're pulling the wool over my eyes? Like, why do I have to believe that you're just saying this to me to make me feel good and actually the vote is on me, not Asia? And you saw Rome go, but this is what I've been told. And like you saw him frazzled, and I think that just shows how actually good of a player Saul is, because the way you were able to make someone like that frazzled in no time.
It's like confirmation. Like I don't think Saul even really needed that confirmation. I was not convinced by Rome's performance.
No.
Saul's facial reactions back were so funny. And like you could tell, like I thought he was going to start laughing. Like I
that would have been
the going to start laughing. It was funny. This was a really I'm sorry. It was a really funny scene.
It was.
But now I want to talk about Keyshawn and Teeny with Asia, because this, I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. So many thoughts. Okay. First of all, you can't see it for those of you watching, but Ollie just muted himself in anticipation of what. So first of all, I think the thing is that Teeny and Keyshawn, however they were pitching this to Asia, did not make sense. That this did not make sense to me at all, what they were saying. They were saying Rome has the advantages, so we're going to have to vote out Saul. When I thought Asia was correct, where Asia was like, what about Genevieve? And it was like, this is like part A of the conversation. Like this is like the first part where I'm like, this was odd. So I want to focus on this aspect first. But did you get that same impression where I was like, I don't know where they're going with this?
No, I'm completely opposite to you. I really defend Keyshawn and Teeny in this scene. And it's because of obviously like I want to preference it by I understand why Asia sat there and was like, why can't we just do Genevieve? Like, I understand that because obviously those are the people she's not working with. So I can understand why she would extremely be hesitant. The fact that you couldn't kind of put the social cues together that, oh, I'm really like, I'm not in the majority, like, I'm not in a good place here.
Well, you're talking about Asia's position.
Yeah,
right?
Asia's position. Yeah. I'm in this situation where clearly I could be a vote. Like, I think that's for me where it was the fact that she didn't clock that, because it was very clear that she was like stuck on her stance.
Oh, totally. And that's part two of like what I'm thinking about. I was just thinking like, honestly, if Teeny and Keyshawn came to me with like that reasoning, which you're right, I think Asia needed to sort of catch on that like this was not going to go her way regardless. It just confused me. Like that's like I knew that they were against her at this point. And to your point, this is where I also felt like Teeny and Keyshawn actually did the correct move, which was they knew that Asia would not be happy with them, considering the vote that they were about to do, which at this point was Saul. So that means that they would come back to camp after Saul was voted out, and they would have to try to win Asia over again and might not be able to. So I thought that was really interesting.
And that's where I agree with it, because if you've got someone that you can already tell is not going to be happy with the decision, and for me, it was I'm going to be hated. I don't think Asia played well here at all. I think it was similar to Rome in the sense of she was trying to get her way. And if she didn't get her way, she was gonna, similar to kind of Tasu, like she was gonna hold it against them. So I think, like you said, I agree. I think it was the correct move for Teeny and Keyshawn, because it's like they know that Saul is gonna be a very logical person here and kind of go, okay, I understand what happened. I can move it. Like, I know that I've got to try and move on from this, but also in the sense of they know they can still be in the middle with Saul in the game, because it's very clear Saul is not going to go to Rome at this point. Like, Saul is probably going to know, like, I've got to talk to everyone but Rome. And that still puts Keyshawn and Teeny in a middle position with a bit more power. And again, I think, no, have you got anything to add? Because I don't want to say anything and be hated.
Well, no. Listen, what I do want to say is that Asia is beloved in the Survivor community for so many reasons. She is a podcaster on Rob Has a Podcast. Like, people are so excited to see her play for that reasoning. I do think I didn't know Asia before the season. And I really liked her. I like seeing her play. I will agree. I do think that this was, well, here's the thing. she's not wrong to the fact that
No.
voting out Saul would have been terrible for her game. She is
Yes.
not wrong. So like I can see why she didn't want to just give in to that. Like that is very logical to me.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
like, you know,
agree.
to the your point, eventually it does get to that moment where your alliance is telling you it's not happening. And you just have to make that decision at that point. And by the way, Ollie and I have never played. Like we don't know. Like that's what I also want to say. We're playing from the couch. We can't judge any of these players for how
No.
their approach to the game. And Ollie, to your point, we don't see everything.
No.
So like that's what I want to be clear. Like we can critique Asia's game, and as we critique everyone's game. So like I think that's the thing where at some point I think she missed the opportunity to say,
Yeah.
okay, it's Saul and save herself.
Yeah.
But let's face it, it would have been an uphill climb after Saul was voted out.
Yeah, exactly. And there's actually a point from Minos here that I think is quite good. Asia saw it as a loyalty test, which I thought was interesting. And I agree with it. And I think that is another reason why it might have not been the best move for her. Because at that point, Asia is not the one in power. And why? So I'm trying to say this correctly. At the end of the day, she was not in a position of power to be able to have that loyalty test. In my view, as a viewer, I understand why she may have wanted it like that, but that she didn't have the leverage to have that ability at that point, which is why I saw it more as a knock off her, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to say this nicely.
She lost the leverage where, you know, like, and I do think that's valid, but to Minos's point here, to quote Asia, he uses his idol. All he has is the steal. Like her alliance would still be in majority, which then just brings up the question, like, were Teeny and Keyshawn really ever that interested in working with Asia? Yes or no? Because I feel like this would have gone a lot. I feel like it would have been more digestible to the Survivor fan community if we saw hints of Teeny and Keyshawn being like, you know, Asia could be a great player. Like, you know, when we get to merge, we don't know what's going to happen. Asia's so knowledgeable about the game.
Yeah.
Instead, we got the footage of Teeny sort of like saying, that's why I want to work with Asia. That's why I want to be aligned with her. So it was just really, it was like a big 180. And I think that the Survivor audience is having a hard time comprehending why they were so unwilling to continue working with Asia when they set up such a great relationship between the three of them.
Yeah. And I think, again, I can only speak on my perspective and, again, how I would see it. So preferencing that. I think when you look at Keyshawn and Teeny, they are two players that are very adaptable, but also they're very group orientated. Like they are very clearly in the middle, but they want to make sure whatever decision they make, it doesn't feel like a them decision. Like it doesn't feel like a Keyshawn and Teeny decision. It feels like a group decision. And I think that's where maybe the disconnect possibly was with Asia, because when they were having that discussion with Asia, it didn't feel like a group decision. It felt like Asia wanted her, like Asia had this mindset and she wasn't moving past it. And it didn't feel like she was possibly seeing Teeny and Keyshawn's full picture.
Well, no, I'm going to push back a little bit because I didn't think they had a good full picture. Like, you know, to the point of the quote that Minos just shared, it's like if they went against Rome, it's a risk, but Survivor's all about taking risk.
Yeah.
He still would have been, if they got out Genevieve, he still would have been in the minority. If he played it for himself, you know, like he still wouldn't have had the votes. So I get where Asia's coming from. And I did not buy into what Keyshawn and Teeny were selling here. So that is where I was just like, no. And to your point about Asia wanting it to go her way, I think the same thing can be said about Teeny and Keyshawn.
That's very
about
fair,
you know, their thing. So I do think it was very interesting. Like
Some
I
valleys.
thought this
Yeah.
was so interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But we go to tribal
Oh, God,
council,
absolutely.
and Genevieve does one of my favorite subtle moves ever, where she's just like mid thought talking to Jeff, and then like not even like really like so beautifully calling out Saul and Asia by just
Yeah.
being like, yeah, like tribal council is like so confusing. Like Saul and Asia are making eye contact, and it's just like, what is there? I was like, Genevieve, that was my
That was
favorite
good.
move
Yeah.
I've seen of her so far. That was awesome.
That was so subtle, but so masterful, because it's like she's talking. She's just quickly put the spotlight onto both of them, but continue talking like it's not as big of a deal as it is. So well done on her on that.
Yes.
Well done. Because you then saw Teeny going, excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Like that was so subtle, and actually like I feel like I would want to work with Genevieve if we were playing the game together, but I would see that and I'd be like, oh, you are slick. Like that was like game sees game. Like that was really good.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Yeah. Because I would clock that and be like, oh, she's noticing the little things. You've got like, and that would make you think, okay, I've got to keep an eye on like the little things I do because she's going to notice them.
Yes, 1,000%. What was there? Hold on. Was there anything else? I felt like it was a pretty. Oh, Keyshawn. What was that? I don't know if he just thought that Jeff wouldn't ask him more about that, but when Keyshawn mentioned the core four, I was like, why?
I think Keyshawn in this moment, like he was talking, and then I think his mind just kind of went into ramble mode.
You think?
Yeah. Like, again, I think that was bad. I know I've been very heavy, like pushing praise on Keyshawn and Teeny this episode.
Yeah.
I will admit that, like, I'm not stupid. I saw that and I went, oh no. But I think where he was positioned, he was able to save it more, because obviously, as we kind of saw, like during the vote, so let me explain before you give me that lip, Matthew.
Yep.
Obviously, you hear that, and it's like Roman Genevieve probably will think like, yeah, that's us. But like, obviously, I'm like, well, how am I saying that? But I also think in the same breath, Asia and Saul are looking at that and going, talking about us, why are you saying that? So again, I'm just preferencing by saying both, like all four people are probably looking at you going, shut up about the core four. But to like that, everyone is looking at him thinking, shut up about the core four. But there are two core fours that think this, and that's what I'm giving the credit to. Just to like, it's the fact that him and Teeny are in this very good position where there are two groups that think that they are talking about core four, but we don't know which core four they're talking about.
Ollie, I rolled my eyes too soon.
Thank you.
I can admit when I'm wrong, but I didn't take it as like just a blab type of thing. I just think he thought that Jeff would not press him for it. Like I thought he could get away with it, like by saying the core four, that both groups would be like, he's locked in with me. But like when I'm happy. I mean, was it an overstep? I don't think it was an overstep. Well, if you're going to bring up that you're working with a group, why shouldn't, if you're really working with a group, why shouldn't you name?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
You know,
but, yeah.
Like I know that I think Jeff was sort of baiting Keyshawn in a little bit, but I think Keyshawn really needed to say something. I don't know. I would have been red flags all over the place. I think honestly at that point I might have stood up and said we have to switch the vote.
To who?
To Keyshawn. Because if he's gonna work with everyone and not admit to working with everyone, what?
About to remove you. Don't say that about my draft pick. It's my draft pick.
Because you're doing so well.
I'm second in the draft, actually.
I spoke too soon. Anyway, so the other thing I thought was interesting was, I forget the quote. Someone tell me, what did Asia say before they went up to vote? Jeff basically says, like, are we ready to vote? And then, yeah, that's right, Minos. And then Asia says, What did she say?
She basically she's talking about voting
With her.
Basically saying to the people that I said vote this way. And I think it was a scare tactic I don't want to call anybody out, but I hope the person who agreed to vote with me sticks to that. Otherwise, I know I can be at risk of going home, or an ally could be at risk.
And
thank you, Minos. I think that was a scare tactic towards Rome. I feel like she said that because she wanted to make Rome worry. Because I think her target obviously was Genevieve. And I think her goal in that was to spook Rome a little bit to ensure that he played the idol on himself.
Oh, yeah, could be. But I mean, honestly, I also thought that it was just specifically.
I didn't speak too soon then.
No, I was just giving my perspective without having all of the information. But that's that's all it was. But I appreciate it because I do think that, if anything, you're going to try to flush the idol. So whether or not, because I also do feel like I got the impression that Asia knew that it was going to, I think she thought it was going to be Saul.
Yeah, absolutely.
If out of the two of them, like that's where I think it was going. But unfortunately, it ends up being Asia. Yeah. And she calls out Teeny and Keyshawn for voting against her. And then as she's going to Jeff, she turns back to Saul and asks, were you a part of it too? Which I thought was like a really interesting thing that they kept in the episode.
Yeah. I think people might be shocked by this. I give Asia absolute props for how she reacted to her vote off and actually showing that true emotion. Because I think a lot of people kind of like try to play it off. But Asia was like, no, I'm upset. Like, I'm going to feel some type of way. Completely respect it out of her. I think she just did it because it was like such a weird vote. Like, it was a 3-1-1-1. Like, I think, again, very rare that occurs. Iconic for her. So I think she's kind of sat there going, I have no idea where, who, what, when, how. So I'm just going to be shut up and go, did you vote for me? And I think she knew that Sol would have sat there and gone yes or no. I think she knew that Sol would have just been straight up with it. Slightly weird, obviously, but iconic.
Oh no, yeah, I really liked it too. It was just I don't know if it's going to play into Saul's storyline moving forward, or because I agree. Like in the moment, I think it's what possibly you think.
Well, I think in the sense of I think it's not going to come from Sol. I think so. Hypothetically speaking, this would be my theory. Rome would take that and then go, well, clearly you weren't close with Asia because she thought you voted for it. Like, it would be Rome adding that fuel. I think that's where it would come from. Because obviously we saw in the next time of Survivor, Rome and Sol were not besties.
I know.
And so I think
so excited.
I think that could possibly be a thing to add to it, because I think he turned around and be like, well, clearly she thought that you voted for her. So,
well, I thought it was very eventful, and I wanted to say, obviously, as a Survivor podcaster, definitely not as in the realm as Rob has a podcast, but I really loved seeing Asia play because, it just kind of felt like, one of us, right? Like we're not exactly connected, but it felt really cool. And whether or not you feel that Asia did a good job, I felt that in the moment, I really kind of felt the weight of the world on her for a second here, in the fact that she is well known in the Survivor community, with the fact that people would be excited to see her play. Like we saw it from the fan community a lot. So that's also what I was getting from this moment here, was just kind of the realization that she had been voted out from the game earlier than she ever intended to. So I want to say, like, show your support for Asia, and honestly, show your support for all the players, because at the end of the day, this was a move. Yeah.
It's a game. It's not real life. as much as we might find people annoying, hi Rome, I'm joking, love you really. Like, it's a game and like they have to play it. Like, we're not here to watch only certain people play. And we're not here to only have certain people make it to the end. Like, yeah, absolutely love seeing Asia on here. And I think it's a great representation of having us, like specifically like Survivor podcasters, having that platform. And obviously we all hope that there's more of it. Like, is what it is.
And Rome, great job for making it happen. You know, like, great gameplay there. So with that, why don't we finished covering the episode, but now we're going to take a look at all of the tweets and Instagram posts from some of these Survivor players about this past episode in our next segment called The Tribe Has Posted. All right, Ollie, go ahead and guide us through all of this fun stuff.
Okay, so the first thing we have is good old Rome. I will say Rome is great at tweeting. Rome is great with the social media. And it was obviously, so we have just he's setting the record straight. It was 7 fish he caught.
7 fish, not 4.
Yeah. And this, Rome, if you are currently watching this, you know that this Instagram story was shady, but I'm here for it. Just a gamer playing the greatest game ever made. Because obviously the little one there saying, and Twitter goes insane, because it did.
Well, this one was my favorite.
Favorite tweet ever. Favorite tweet. Like, Q was a troller last season. Rome went, hand me my crown.
My face turned red when I saw this.
Do you know what? Like, again, I know I've been hypercritical of Rome like this episode. Again, I say this as someone that I just know when it comes to the tribe settings, me and him, like I would have probably had a similar situation where there would have been things I'd have been like, Rome, just stop it. This, absolutely love it, respect it, because he, like, at the end of the day, there was a certain community that, you know, were being very upset. Everyone has their entitlement, that everyone's allowed to be upset. This was absolutely funny. And yeah, Minos, I know people took it so seriously, but it's clearly Rome was having a laugh here. We all joined in. I loved it.
It was great. And then we have some about Sam, which, okay, I mean, this wasn't important to the episode, but I was flabbergasted about the fruit and the vegetables.
So I would like to publicly be on Sam's side. I have never had pineapple or zucchini either. So, Sam, if you are watching this, you are not alone in this fight. It's just something I've never wanted to have. Don't see the appeal in pineapple or zucchini. Or tomatoes. Do you know what? Do you want me to say something that's truly going to shock people? This is going to make people hate me more than Sam. I don't like Italian food. I do not like pizza.
I just want to thank you all.
No, we're not.
You're gonna have zucchini for dinner tomorrow.
No.
Okay, listen. Everyone's entitled to, I just find it impressive to get through. I think Sam is 24, to get through 24 years of life without having tried it at least once.
29 beat that.
There you go.
But also, there was another tweet that I didn't have, and it actually was the search for heirloom tomatoes went up. There was a spike in the search for heirloom tomatoes.
Wait, that's so funny because I didn't, but I was going to.
Yeah, there is a tweet. If you go look at Sam is someone, again, very active on social media. We love it. And he posted a thing. I think it was him and Arnica. It was him or Arnica. One of the Gutter people posted a thing, and it showed the spike of people searching for heirloom tomatoes. So,
Well, then we also have to hear from our player who was eliminated this episode, Asia.
Yes, and I think she handled it with grace. I think she handled it lovingly. We see a tweet from, I believe it's her sister, or a message,
Oh,
sorry,
text
from her
message.
sister. Yeah, a text message from her sister. And I think that's all you needed to see. I think she did a really good job of it. And again, this is just one of her interviews with Dalton Ross. She has so many interviews. Go watch them because you get more insight into what occurred. And again, as we know, context is key. But shall we move on to the question? No,
I love it. Now that Ollie's back, we have our poll questions that go up at the end of every episode, and then we reveal the responses here on our show.
Yes. So just a reminder to everyone, go onto X. You will see Got Something for your polls. We will try and make sure it's mentioned on Instagram as well. But go like them and vote in them. So the first one I had was, who is your favorite duo currently? Sam and Sierra, Teeny and Kishan, Sue and Caroline, Roman Advantages. And the winner was Roman Advantages. Just because everyone else was talking about all these other duos. I sat there and I went, clearly the actual duo is Roman his Advantages.
I mean, Roman his advantages are like apparent in every episode. Yeah. So I would agree with that. Next, we have...
Was Sue right to not give Carl any trust? Because I feel like this was a topic that not a lot of people looked at. And I think it's actually something that I wanted to bring more attention to, because I think that was, I think we saw me talk about it earlier in the episode. I think it was just something to talk about. Obviously, it was, yes, she, I think that was meant to say owes nothing. She owes nothing. No needs to be more adaptable and maybe... but be cautious. We all know me that she owes nothing.
Yeah, I think you had to clarify.
Had to clarify that she knows nothing. She owes nothing. Yeah.
When it comes to Sue, I agree. I do think that she needs to adapt. I think sometimes people in the game lose track of why you were the vote. Like why in that moment, in that instance, they wanted you out at that time. And that was because of tribe strength. That's what their pitch was. Now that the game has moved from that because TK got voted out, I think it's important to reprioritize or readapt to the situation. I think Kyle realized that, we're not going to vote along the lines of strength here. And I wish and I hope that Stu is able to move past the fact that he just wrote her name. I get it. Like, I get when someone writes your name down, it's automatically they want me out of this game. But I do think it's important to recognize the why in that particular tribal council that was the case.
Yeah. And I mean, 60% of people said no needs to be more adaptable. I actually was in the 30% of maybe, but be cautious. I think that would have been a good starting point for Sue.
Yeah, I would have voted there too.
Yeah, but the fans voted and it was no.
The fans voted. What's next?
The next one is, did the right person leave this tribal?
This is interesting. Interesting.
It's so interesting because we saw the reaction, but people then went, yeah. So again, I will preference, obviously, we were redoing this again, so there wasn't that many votes. I'm not going to disclose the amount of votes we had. I will to Matthew after this, but obviously 8% said yes. So clearly, even though we are upset, I think people can understand the logic, hopefully, behind why it happened.
And I think with some distance from this episode, I think more people will start to come around, or they will get validated and see that this, in fact, ruins the people's games who ruined Asia's game. So that could happen too. And I think, people will feel satisfied by that, or they will see that it actually was the correct move for whoever did this. Yeah. So that's interesting. And then Ollie closes out with this one.
So from Survivor Now podcast, we just have a friendly reminder that just because your fave may have gone home doesn't mean anyone deserves any hate or negativity. Because for me, I will openly put my hands up. I did this tweet. I think it's just, we all know it was me. It's just a gentle reminder. Look, we understand that people get voted out and you can be frustrated. You can be sad. You can be mad that your fave got out. But we saw what happened last season, And I just want to remind fans, there is no place to send hate. I know in the bottom it says don't be toxic, be better. For me, don't be bitter, be better. And that's how I want to close it out. And remember, send love to your faves. Go and send Asia love. Go send Teeny love. Go send Sam love, even though he doesn't eat fruit. Go send Andy love. Go send every single person love. Go send the ones you like love.
With that, I think that is a really great place to end today's episode. I just want to, again, thank you all so much for joining us and for being so active in the live chat. It definitely makes these conversations a lot more fun. We love that you're all a part of this as well. We will be here again next Saturday for another episode of Got Something For Ya, where we will be talking about Survivor 47, episode 4. Ollie, it was great to have you back, and I look forward to next time.